They told you this was a victory. On every major news network, the headlines are celebrating. They are showing you the images of a handcuffed dictator. They are telling you that justice has finally been served in Caracas. The administration is taking a victory lap, claiming that American resolve has returned. But I am here to tell you what they are not showing you. This operation was not a return to strength. It was a desperate act of a superpower that has run out of options. What you are witnessing is not the restoration of order. It is the final cracking sound of a global system breaking apart. Historians will not look back on January 2026 as the moment America won. They will look back on this week as the moment we walked into a trap that we set for ourselves. We have traded a tactical win for a strategic catastrophe. We got the man, but we are losing the map. While Washington celebrates a raid, Beijing is celebrating a shift. They didn't have to fire a single shot. They didn't have to spend a single dollar on missiles. All they had to do was stand back and watch us validate every accusation they have ever made against us. We have just proven to the entire global South that sovereignty is conditional. We have proven that international law is a tool we use against our enemies, but ignore when it inconveniences us. And the consequences of this are not going to stay in Venezuela. They are going to ripple across the Atlantic to Africa. They are going to shake the foundations of our alliances in the Middle East. And most importantly, they are going to find their way into your retirement account. Because you cannot disconnect geopolitical credibility from economic stability. When the world stops trusting the sheriff, they stop buying the sheriff's bonds. That is the reality no one in the mainstream media wants to explain to you. But for the next 20 minutes, we are going to strip away the patriotic slogans. We are going to look at the cold, hard map of power politics. We are going to examine why our allies are terrified, why our enemies are emboldened, and why this so-called victory might actually be the beginning of our isolation. This is the story of the global coercion trap, the pattern of failure. To understand why this is a disaster, you have to stop looking at Venezuela as an isolated incident. You have to look at the pattern. This is not the first time in recent years we have tried to force an outcome and failed to secure the future. Let's go back to September 2024. Let's talk about Niger. Most Americans have already forgotten about Air Base 201, but the Pentagon hasn't. We spent over $100 million building that base. It was supposed to be the anchor of American counterterrorism in the Sahel. It was state-of-the-art. It was supposed to be permanent. And then, virtually overnight, we were told to leave. A military junta took power, and their first order of business was to evict the United States. And what did we do? We packed our bags. We left behind a $100 million asset in the middle of the desert. But here is the critical part that connects to today. As our transport planes were taking off, Russian trainers were landing. As we were dismantling our equipment, Chinese delegations were arriving to discuss mining contracts. Why did that happen? It happened because our entire strategy was built on security coercion, not economic partnership. We offered them drones to hunt terrorists. We offered them special forces training. But we didn't offer them a way to build their economy. We came with guns. Our competitors came with contracts. And when the political winds shifted, we had no leverage left. Now, fast forward to today, in Caracas. We have just doubled down on the exact same strategy that failed in Africa. We believe that kinetic force can solve political problems. We believe that if we just hit hard enough, reality will bend to our will. But the world has changed since the 1990s. In the 90s, we could do this because there was no alternative. If a country wanted to be part of the global economy, they had to go through Washington. They had to play by our rules because there was no other game in town. That era is over. The monopoly is gone. When we use force now, we are not bringing countries back into line. We are pushing them into the waiting arms of an alternative ecosystem. Every time we use the military option, we make the diplomatic option impossible. We are creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. We treat nations like rogue states, and so they seek protection from our rivals. Then we point to that relationship and say, see, they were enemies all along. This is the cycle of failure. This is the coercion trap. And with this operation in Venezuela, we haven't just stepped into the trap. We have slammed it shut on our own leg. The Middle Power Rebellion. The most dangerous reaction to this operation didn't come from our enemies. It came from our friends. Look at Brazil. Look at Colombia. These are not rogue states. These are major democracies in our own hemisphere. Lula in Brazil and Petro in Colombia are not fans of Maduro. They have criticized him for years. But watch what they did this week. They issued a joint condemnation of the United States. They didn't celebrate the removal of a dictator. They condemned the violation of sovereignty. Why? Because they are terrified. They are looking at a United States that is becoming increasingly unpredictable. They are asking a very simple question. If Washington can decide to remove a head of state in Venezuela because they don't like his politics, what stops them from doing it to us? This is what Washington fails to understand about the psychology of the global South. To us, we are the good guys delivering freedom. To them, we are a superpower that plays by its own rules. And nothing scares a middle power more than a superpower that stops following the law. This fear creates a behavior called hedging. Hedging is what happens when you don't trust your insurance company, so you start putting money in a second bank account. Brazil is hedging. Turkey is hedging. Saudi Arabia is hedging. Indonesia is hedging. They are not declaring war on America. They are simply diversifying their survival strategies. They are signing trade deals with China, not because they love communism. They are signing them because they need an insurance policy against American coercion. Every time we use sanctions as a weapon, the value of that insurance policy goes up. Every time we conduct a raid like this, the demand for Chinese protection increases. We are actively marketing the alternative order. We are the best salesmen for the multipolar world. Look at the Saudis. For decades, the deal was simple. We provide security. They price oil in dollars. That was the bedrock of the financial system. But what happens when they no longer trust our security guarantee? What happens when they see us abandoning allies in Afghanistan, or losing bases in Niger, or conducting unilateral raids in Latin America? They start to wonder if the deal is still worth it, and they start to make moves. Quiet moves. Moves like joining the BRICS alliance. Moves like accepting yuan for oil shipments to Shanghai. They aren't shouting it from the rooftops because they don't want a confrontation, but the shift is undeniable. They are building a world where they can survive without us. And this week, we gave them one more reason to accelerate that construction. We prove that being in America's orbit is dangerous. We prove that we are impulsive. And in the world of high-stakes geopolitics, impulsiveness is not a strength. It is a liability. The China contrast. Now let's look at the other side of the chessboard. While we were planning this operation, what was China doing? They were opening a port, the Chancay Port in Peru. It is a massive deep-water facility, fully operational as of late 2024. It is a game-changer for South American trade. It allows Brazil, Chile, and Peru to ship soy, copper, and lithium directly to Asia, bypassing the United States entirely. It cuts shipping times by weeks. It lowers costs for everyone involved. And here's the contrast that hurts. The United States sent Marines to the region. China sent cranes. The United States brought a legal argument about who is the legitimate president. China brought a logistical solution to export goods. This is the optical disaster we are facing. We look like the chaos agent. They look like the builder. China's message to the world is seductive in its simplicity. They say, we don't care who you vote for. We don't care about your laws. We don't care about your ideology. We just want to do business. It is the no-strings-attached model. And for a developing country that is tired of being lectured by Western embassies, that is an attractive offer. The Chancay Port is not just concrete and steel. It is a physical anchor of a new supply chain that excludes the United States. It is a declaration of independence for the South American economy, and we have no answer for it. Our answer was to lecture Peru about the dangers of Chinese debt. But we didn't offer a better loan. We didn't offer to build a better port. We just offered warnings. You cannot fight something with nothing. You cannot fight infrastructure with ideology. And now, with the Venezuela operation, we have added fear to the mix. So imagine you are a leader in Lima or Santiago or Brasilia. On one hand, you have a partner who builds ports that help your farmers sell crops. On the other hand, you have a partner who reserves the right to kidnap your neighbors if they disagree with them. Which way do you lean? The answer is obvious. China is winning the global South not because their ideology is better. They are winning because they are playing a game of addition, while we are playing a game of subtraction. We sanction, we ban, we block, we arrest. They build, they lend, they buy, they connect. This strategic incompetence is staggering. We are handing them the keys to the continent. We are driving the resource-rich nations of the world into a block that is explicitly designed to resist us. And we are doing it while patting ourselves on the back for being tough. It is not tough. It is foolish. It is the geopolitical equivalent of burning down your house to kill a spider. Yes, the spider is dead, but you have nowhere to live. The economic blowback. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Why should I care about a port in Peru or a base in Niger? I live in Ohio. I live in Florida. I live in Texas. How does this affect me? This is where we need to talk about the money. This is where the global coercion trap hits your wallet. The United States runs on debt. We have a $36 trillion national debt. We can sustain this massive debt for one reason only: because the US dollar is the world reserve currency. Because foreign nations buy our treasury bonds. They buy our debt because they need dollars to trade oil, to buy grain, to conduct business. That demand for dollars keeps our borrowing costs low. It keeps your mortgage rates manageable. It keeps the government funded. But what happens when we weaponize the dollar? What happens when we freeze the assets of Russia or Venezuela or Afghanistan? Every time we use the dollar as a weapon, we tell the world that holding dollars is a risk. If you hold dollars, you are vulnerable to American foreign policy. If Washington gets mad at you, your money disappears. So rational countries are finding ways to trade without dollars. This is the silent diversification. It is already happening. Look at Project Enbridge. It is a digital currency platform developed by the Bank of International Settlements, involving China, Thailand, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. It allows these countries to trade instantly in their own currencies without ever touching the U.S. banking system. It bypasses SWIFT. It bypasses New York. It bypasses the sanctions. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is banking software that is running right now. And operations like the one in Venezuela accelerate the adoption of these systems. When countries see that the U.S. is willing to use force to get its way, they run faster toward these alternative rails. So, here is the economic blowback. If the world needs fewer dollars, they buy fewer treasury bonds. When demand for our bonds drops, the interest rate we have to pay goes up. When government bond yields go up, every other interest rate in the economy goes up. Your mortgage rate goes up. Car loans go up. Business loans go up. And the interest payment on our national debt explodes. We are already paying more on interest than we spend on defense. If we lose the reserve status privilege, that math becomes catastrophic. It means permanent, structural inflation. It means the purchasing power of your retirement savings gets wiped out. That 401k you spent 40 years building. It is denominated in a currency that requires global trust to maintain its value. When our government acts recklessly on the global stage, they are not just risking the lives of soldiers. They are gambling with your financial future. They are lighting a match in a room full of dynamite. The standard of living in America is artificially subsidized by the world's trust in the dollar. If we shatter that trust with coercive diplomacy, the subsidy ends. And the crash will be unlike anything we have seen in our lifetimes. So let's render a verdict on this week's events. The operation was a tactical masterpiece. The intelligence was solid. The execution was precise. The objective was achieved. But strategy is not about winning the battle. Strategy is about improving your position for the war. And by that metric, this was a devastating defeat. We have reinforced the narrative that America is a bully, not a leader. We have accelerated the formation of a counter-hegemonic bloc led by China. We have given the middle powers of the world every reason to bet against us. We are entering a period of history where we are becoming a lonely superpower. We have the biggest guns, but fewer and fewer friends willing to stand behind them. Power is not just the ability to destroy. Power is the ability to persuade. It is the ability to set the rules that others voluntarily follow. We are losing that ability. We are replacing legitimacy with force. And history is littered with the ruins of empires that made that mistake. Rome, Britain, the Soviet Union. They all reached a point where the cost of maintaining control exceeded the benefits of the order they built. We are dangerously close to that tipping point. The arrest in Caracas feels good today. It feels like justice. But in the cold light of geopolitical reality, it looks like hubris. And hubris is always followed by nemesis. The world is changing. The old rules no longer apply. And if we do start adapting to this new reality, if we do start offering partnership, instead of pressure, we are going to wake up in a world where we are no longer welcome. We need to stop confusing fear with respect. They fear us, but they are beginning to respect our rivals. And that is a losing hand. I want you to think about what this means for the money in your pocket. I want you to think about the stability of the system you rely on, because the cracks are showing. And they are getting wider every day. If you want to understand exactly how the mechanism of your savings is being dismantled, you need to understand the plumbing of the global financial system. You need to understand SWIFT and why the alternatives are growing so fast. I am going to break that down in the next video. It is called The End of the Petrodollar and the Rise of Enbridge. You cannot afford to miss it. Click here to watch it now. I will see you there.